Hi everybody, and welcome to a new series that we're calling Inside Art of Fishing. In this very first episode, we are going to be introducing to you a very exciting new brand. Also, we are in Devon fishing with AOF team member Tom Barron, and after that we will be showing you something about a very exciting new range of rods. Hi everyone, and welcome to the sunny north coast of Cornwall, where we've come today just to show you off a new range of products that we're very proud to announce. We have taken on the distribution for the Hayabusa hook brand. It may or may not be a brand that you've heard of, but it's one that I've known about for a long time. There's a lot of very good quality hook manufacturers in Japan, which is where Hayabusa come from. They make quality hooks for every type of fishing, which is why they're actually so great. For us in the UK, there's far more to it than just the lure fishing that we're particularly well known for. So they've become a real focus of my time over the last 6 months or more, where we can be communicating with them, sorting out lots of different plans and ideas so that we can actually do this properly rather than jumping in and really not being prepared. So a great range of products that is finally up on our website. We will also be supplying them to other shops around the country. So if they're a brand that you're interested in or like the look of and want to try, then you can speak to your local shop to see what they can do for you. Just get them to get in touch, and we can see what we can do for them. I don't know how many of you guys are aware, but I've come from very much a mixed fishing background. We're involving a lot of match fishing, just general course fishing, a lot of sea fishing as well when I was younger. So having a brand like Hayabusa on our books means that there's something there to kind of keep my brain interested. It's not just polarized down one direction, which is the case with a lot of the products we sell. They are very lure orientated, which I absolutely love. But having Hayabusa on board means that I kind of now have another little something interesting to get my teeth into, which is a nice new challenge in a way. So jumping a little bit more to some of the products, I mean, and just that history included, the lure fishing range covers every type of hook we'd ever need as lure anglers, whether that's in fresh or salt water. From the more traditional types that we might use from the saltwater side these days, where we have our sort of weedless hooks and all of our twist lock, weedless, weighted, different weedless jig heads and things like that. They're amazing hooks for that sort of purpose. Then to jump to the match fishing side, where we're going down into tiny sizes, some of which are actually very well known. I mean, Hayabusa as a brand has become a very popular but niche range in a way. Their traditional Japanese range of products that they supply is very focused towards barbed patterns, which means that it only really suits our natural fisheries, our rivers and our lakes and reservoirs, things like that, canals as well, where their hooks are very sharp, very fine wire, very strong for the wire as well. And it means that within the guys that know them, especially the international anglers, they're very well known across the continent, and held in such high regard that a lot of the guys here in those highest levels are fully aware of this brand. They're just not one that you necessarily see everywhere across the country yet. So it'll be our job, obviously, to try and make sure that some of you get the luxury of fishing with some of these things. So the match side is something we are going to be working on. That's where I'm sure in future videos you'll even see myself actually using some of these hooks for that reason. And with the lure side, again, we'll be doing a lot of the same. So I'm sure at this point most of you guys watching this will be lure anglers, so we'll jump straight in to show you a few of the products from that range. They cover, obviously, like I said earlier, every type of lure fishing you could imagine doing in the UK. In Cornwall here, we're spoilt with a bit of everything, to be honest, from the LRF to the bass and beyond, obviously. So the bass fishing is such a big thing for us, especially on these sorts of beaches and places, that weedless hooks have become such a predominant feature within our tackle boxes, that Hayabusa are very lucky in that, well, we're very lucky to have Hayabusa, because for one reason, they are designed in a lot of cases, these weedless hooks, by the guy who runs OSP, the lure manufacturer. Many of you will be familiar with the Do Live Stick, which has always been a really popular lure within this type of fishing, and it means that these hooks are designed for that lure in some cases. So what we'll just do is run you through a couple of what we think will be the more popular patterns for our bass fishing. To start off with what will be the wide gape screw lock, which is inevitably this type of hook has just taken over our bass fishing in a lot of cases. Anything in shallow, reefy, rocky areas, again, like we do so much of locally, where the bass are feeding in less than 2 foot of water on occasion, this type of hook is perfect for that, where you've got the twist lock kind of adapter on the front so that you can wind into the nose of the lure to hold it really securely. And then you've got the weight. Anything, or they actually run the nice thing about this range in particular is that the weight range is huge. Also, the hook sizes cover a vaster range than most other brands do. So we get them actually running from a 1.0 all the way up to a 7.0, I think. And the weights run, I think, from less than a gram up to 7 grams. So they cover really all of our lure types, every situation with all those different weight types as well. So an amazing range of weedless butt hooks that we'll use a lot for our bass, but they'll come in useful in lots of other situations as well. There's also then, to jump onto something a little bit similar, but different, is the weedless jig heads that they do. These are amazing because I first used these actually probably more than 10 years ago. They are so sharp, but also have quite a fine wire to them. And especially now that we're doing more with our creature baits and things like that within our estuaries, we're fishing smaller lures, more really natural little lures, where you just want to be bouncing something along the bottom, is exactly where I've been kind of eyeing these up for a long time, knowing that they were going to be perfect for what we do. Again, they're so sharp, so strong for the wire gauge as well, which is actually a feature you see across the whole range really. The weights run again from sort of less than a gram, actually up to 7 grams again in the case of these. The hook sizes are interesting in that they don't go above, I think, 2.0, and it means that they are admittedly restricted on that for bigger lures, but actually for smaller lures, I can't beat them. There's not been another jig head that I've used over a number of years that's been anything like what I always found with these. So amazing little jig heads that are going to come in really useful for this year. And I think, especially now we're fishing more so in our estuaries with smaller, and we're all starting to think a bit more about fishing again, which I think has become really interesting about bass fishing. It's gone through periods where it's become a little bit samey, where we buy the same tackle, we do the same things, but now I think people are experimenting a lot more, and that's exactly what Hayabusa are going to enable us to do and to really expand on, and to help people do more of that. Other hooks in the range include things like their sort of wacky hooks and various types of hooks with weed guards and with or without Nico rigs, things like that are going to be very, very useful on occasion, I think, even within our saltwater fishing as much as they are already in the freshwater. So they're just the most awesome range for us to be selling here, more so than any other brand that I can think of. So it's all kind of come good, I think, and the brand as a whole hopefully has a lot of potential, and a lot of you will get to enjoy it through this year. So that was a little bit of an introduction into the amazing range of Hayabusa hooks. If you have any more questions about specific patterns or just want a little bit of help generally, feel free to drop us a line or leave a comment in the section below. Thank you very much for watching.
Hi guys, it's Tom Barrett here from Tailwalk Fishing, and today I'm out on the South Devon coast. We're hopefully going to catch some wrasse, and I'm going to be using the new Hayabusa range of hooks. So this spot here in particular has done me some good fish over the years, and I'm hoping today, hopefully can find a better one. It's a lovely time of year for it now. Spring is definitely starting to kick off. You know, the water's starting to warm up, there's bait fish starting to show, and hopefully a few bigger wrasse starting to come out. So today I'm using the Hayabusa offset Texas hook, and I put that one on a Z-Man turbo crawl and a 7 gram bullet weight. As you can see behind me here, there's plenty of reefs and rocky ground, so there's going to be a lot of crabs about. And now the big wrasse seem to absolutely love eating the crabs, and I found the June bug colour there to be one of my favourites down here. I don't really know why, but they just seem to love it. So today I'm using a slightly longer rod. I'm on the Tailwalk Crimson. This is a 35 gram rated rod. It's 8'3", so obviously a bit longer than but longer than what most people would use for wrasse. However, where we're fishing today, we've got, you know, a lot of gullies, a lot of barnacles and very slaggy ground. So you can, you know, you can bully the fish, use the top of the rod just to, you know, help steer the fish around the gullies and maneuver them into the net. This particular mark has thrown me up some nice fish in the past. I've had fish over £5 here, and you know, there's a lot of smaller fish, so it's hopefully going to be plenty of action. The tide's quite low at the moment, but I'm not too worried about that because I'm sure, you know, when it turns in, you've got to think a half hour till it turns, and then as it starts coming in, the fish will flood in from, you know, further out in the bay, and they will literally come under your feet looking for crabs, shrimps, you know, small pollock, and just anything that moves. So that's all I'm trying to do, is just replicate some kind of bait fish or something that they're going to be eating, crustaceans or something like that, and hopefully catch a nice fish in a minute. This big one. Here we go, guys. Got a fish on here. Not too bad. I'll just go around and try and land him.
Oh, here we go, guys. We finally got one here. It's only small, but it's a start. Just out this deep gully behind me, there's a nice bit of rock in the bottom now. I'm sure it's going to hold a fish. I'm hoping for one about 10 times the size of this, but we'll keep going. There he goes. Nice one. All right, we're off the mark.
So the wrasse fish, I always like to adopt an approach where you're wearing a polarised glasses or something like that, just so you can see right into the bottom. You can see where you're fishing, what you're fishing over. So it's a good idea to, you know what sort of ground the fish are going to be on, because you can usually generally tell, you know, if there's a nice looking boulder and a bit of kelp over it, chances are there's going to be some kind of life going on underneath it. So all I do is cast out to it, and I like to keep the rod, I don't know, about 11 o'clock in the air there. It's nice and high, and the trick is keep that line nice and tight. Always fish a braid for wrasse. I'm on, this is the Tailwalk Pararoy. I think it's 25 pounds, so quite heavy stuff. But obviously with wrasse being such hard fighting fish, you don't want to take chances. You know, these fish run. Rigged that on a little 3000 Vanford here, and obviously the Tailwalk Crimson, and we're just keeping that slack, keeping that braid tight, and just hopping it along the bottom. You know, you can feel absolutely everything with a good sensitive rod, and as soon as a wrasse comes along and has a nibble at that, you know, you've got the sharp judder, and then on the third I usually set the hook if it hasn't done already. So yeah, that's generally what I do. And then another little tip that I've found to work nicely is so we're fishing a Texas rig right now, so the 7 gram bullet weight, which is completely free flowing up the line, and then I fish a little bead. This just clicks, so when the bullet weight hits the bead, it's clicking, almost mimics like a crab, you know, scuttling along the bottom. And I found that, you know, a glass bead, even a little rattle sometimes can do the job. And I find that a really good way just to catch maybe 1 or 2 more fish if they've been super finicky on the day. So that's generally what I'm using. And I'm not casting a million miles. I mean, yeah, you can pick them up at distance, but I generally find they're under your feet a lot of the time with wrasse. And it's just a case of, you know, bumping over the boulders, getting it in every nook and cranny in the rocks, and hopefully in front of a nice fish. So yeah, we'll keep going, and the tide's going to turn in a minute, and with any luck, there should be a fish or 2 on the bank. So yeah, we'll keep going. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a nice one. There we go. Here we go, guys. This is the second one. They're getting slightly bigger. Nothing huge yet, but you know, we're over a pound now, so we're getting there. Nice one. Drop him. There you go, one last shove of him here. Send him back. Yeah, nice one. There you go. So I've come over to this gully here because the other one wasn't producing so much, but I don't know if you can see it through the camera here, but There's some lovely weed beds here. So I'm hoping the fish will be maybe over this side. It is a bit of trial and error. You've just got to figure out where they are on the day. You know, they're always moving, they're always hunting. And yeah, hopefully you'll get one in a minute. Here we go, guys, we're on again here. This is a much better fish. Yeah, lovely. Let's try and land him somewhere. Just gonna bring him round here. Yeah, this is what we've been after.
Oh, here we go, guys. Finally a slightly better one there. Really lovely colours on this. It's definitely a male. Nice fat fish. It's so nice to see. That's what we came here for. It's taken us time, but luckily getting there now. A lovely fish like that. I'll get some close-ups on the tail on that in a minute, but that is absolutely stunning. So it's been one of those days. It's been pretty tricky. You know, as you can probably tell, we've got quite strong easterlies coming in now. I'm probably going to call it now. It's quite hard to keep in contact with the lure. You know, I've upped the weight and we're still struggling to hold bottom. It's been tricky, but you know, we've had a few fish. We've landed 3. I've lost a few as well, including a nice one earlier, which yeah, I'm going to be kicking myself about for a while. That was a big fish. But anyway, it's been a nice day. It's been lovely to get out. As you know, the sun's out. What more could you really ask for? A few fish on the bank, and yeah. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.
This year we had a couple of rods come into the shop which I looked at initially, to be honest, and thought that maybe they were a little bit too niche and a bit too weird in a way. They are from a Japanese range, from the Tailwalk brand, called the B-Breamer. We eventually ended up with a couple of our team guys fishing with them, just in a way taking away the sort of samples that I got in to start with to see what they were like. Wanted a bit of feedback, obviously, and they've loved them so much that despite the fact that they're, in my own mind initially, they were such a niche product, we are going to get behind them a little bit, I think, because with the way our bass fishing is developing, as much as they're technically designed for the Japanese bream fishing, how they use these rods is so relevant with what we're now doing with our bass fishing in the estuaries, but also our wrasse fishing as well, which is where the guys have really got on well with them. There's 2 rods in this range. Well, in the spinning range anyway. They do bait casting versions as well, but there's 2 rods in the spinning range that are particularly interesting, which are the 7.6 and there's a 7.10 as well. They're very closely rated when you look at them on paper. The 7.6 rated to 18, the 7.10 rated to 21. But when you see them side by side, actually the 7.10 is quite a bit more pokey. It's got a lot of power in the butt. So although it's only rated to 21 grams, you sometimes see this with the Japanese rods actually, when they have what are relatively niche ranges in a way, where they might design a range for bream, they might design a range for a specific type of rockfish, where the ratings are sometimes a bit different to what we see on sea bass rods, for example, from Japan. So these rods rated to 18 and 21. The 21, if you were to compare it with a typical bass rod that we'd see, might feel more like a 30. So you kind of got to sometimes be a little bit careful with the exact numbers and look more into things like the PE rating and things like that, and the tip diameters even as well can become relevant. So the range as it is now with the 7.6 rated to 18, the 7.10 to 21, the 7.6 is naturally, by definition, being the shorter rod. It is lighter, it is crisper. Feels the nicer rod initially of the 2, but the 7.10 really is going to come into its own when we're fishing for slightly larger fish potentially, especially around our estuaries. I mean, when we are now fishing creature baits and things like that around the edges, not necessarily needing to cast a long way, some of our bigger wrasse fishing as well, where you need to bully a fish potentially out of some weed on the inside, for example. They're so sensitive, which I'll go into in a minute, which is what this range is all about. But they've also got so much power that they've got real benefits in certain scenarios. They're not going to be bass rods, for example, that we use in every different situation. They're not all-rounders at all. But if you are fishing lighter lures, especially in the likes of the estuaries and things like that, and getting out on the rocks for the wrasse as well, then you've got to look at them because they're just so different in a way to what you're going to have currently in your shed or wherever you keep your rods. So to get on a little bit to some of the features that make them so great and why they're so interesting. To start with, both of these rods have solid tips. So solid tips, traditionally you might look at them as being actually soft and flimsy in a way. Some historic LRF rods, for example, with solid tips might have been very long, floppy, glass-like tips almost. It's got a long way from that point now, and we'll do a future video even about tip types, because actually they're so varied in how they can make them now with these solid tips in particular. But this is a good example of actually what is quite a short, very fast taper solid tip. So the benefit for us from our bass fishing, and particularly from wrasse fishing as well, is that having that solid tip, and with it being so quick in recovery almost, and because it's solid, you get so much transmission of feeling down from the tip through the guides to you, obviously to the important part where you can feel what's going on down on the grip as well. So if you're bouncing any type of lure along the bottom, it is literally what these rods are designed for. And it's the same as how the Japanese guys will be fishing for their bream when they're using them, where they're using light lures, but actually for relatively hard fighting fish, which could grow to 3, 4, 5 pounds or more, I think. So actually quite similar to how we fish for wrasse. But then there's also, as we're going to discuss, obviously the benefits for that within our close range bass fishing as well, where with the likes of either little Texas rigs or little jig heads, even weighted hooks to a certain extent, where you just need a little bit of bottom contact, is exactly where they're coming good. So to start with the solid tip, like I say, ultimate sensitivity. They're not soft at all. Like I say, they're very fast taper, so they just give you more feeling because of the stiffness and the feeling in that solid tip. So then coming down, you've actually got, so from your solid tip, which actually covers a lot the first 3 guides there, here then sort of blends in really nicely into the next part of the tip section, where again, very fast taper. So by the time you get into the middle of the rod, you've got lots of power. And into the butt here, they're really, really quite pokey. So really quite a clever mix in a way of solid tip to then power in the butt, which isn't something we see in a lot of typical bass rods, especially Japanese ones, where they're typically more regular action and designed for casting plugs and things like that. So a niche rod for us, and actually, like I say, something that I was a bit dubious of to start with, but as they've come so good with the guys that are fishing them on the team, there's nothing to not like. I mean, it's come down as we come through, obviously guides, Fuji SICs, stainless frames. These retail sort of 200 plus, so they're not cheap rods, but actually that's where you're getting quality components, quality carbons, and then into the likes of the brand new Fuji reel seats, where these are sort of really ergonomic shapes, really comfortable. They're actually a hard material throughout here, so again, transmission of feeling, and actually you don't want softness and spongy things involved when you're wanting to feel anything that's coming through the rod. So you've got really comfortable, solid grip here, so that you can feel what's going on, which is the point. Coming down then, relatively short grip, because the idea of a rod like this is that you're going to be twitching and feeling things across the bottom, and just nice EVA throughout. So really nicely finished, look amazing to fish with, really quite unique and different to what most people are ever going to have in their rod quiver already. Amazing wrasse, bass, whatever you want to do, close range, bottom contact, check out the Tailwalk B-Breamer range of rods.